I'm Boston Review's arts editor, Adam McGee, and I'm sharing hosting this evening with one of Boston Review's two contributing arts editors, Ivelisse Rodriguez. We have five incredible readers this evening, and they're going to be sharing excerpts from their work that is in Repair, which is Boston Review's 2022 literary anthology, which was produced by our Arts and Societies program. Arts and Society is a program that we started at Boston Review a few years ago to focus on how the arts can speak directly to the most pressing political and civic concerns, including racism, inequality, poverty, demagoguery, sex and gender-based violence, a disempowered electorate, a collapsing natural world. And it's a mission that dovetails with the broader mission of Boston Review to be a space for the rich discussion of democratic life. We publish new poetry for free on our site most Fridays, and we publish new fiction and criticism at least a couple of times a month. Everything is on our site for free, but we also publish annual themed literary anthologies like Repair, which if you don't already have a copy or you want another one, we're offering right now a 25% discount code, which is REP25, all caps, one word. We'll also put it in the chat. And in addition to our literary anthology, we publish several themed nonfiction anthologies every year. They're usually on left-leaning politics and philosophy, such as our book on anger, which the New Yorker named as one of the best books of 2020. In addition to our annual print issue, Arts and Society also hosts annual poetry and fiction contests, which are free for people to enter if they live outside of the US, Canada, or Western Europe, or are just experiencing hardship. This year's theme for both contests is speculation, with the poetry being judged by Donica Kelly and the fiction by Jordy Rosenberg. The revenue that we get from selling our books and running our contests helps with the cost of our programming, but most of our support is from our members, our donors, and from charitable grants.
I'd like to thank everybody for attending and also thank everyone who made generous donations in support of tonight's event. If you enjoy this event tonight, please pop over to our website, bostonreview.net, to enjoy all the free content and consider helping out by becoming a member, making a donation of any size, or buying a book. Tonight, 5 Repair contributors will read this evening, each for 10 minutes. We ask our readers to be mindful of the clock so that there's plenty of time for everyone. Because time is short, we will also be keeping the author bios brief, but you can find full bios on the event page. Tonight's first reader is Yuri Zhang, for whom it is actually early morning in Shanghai. It's 8 a.m. in Shanghai. She was our 2021 Ara Estrada short story contest winner as selected by colleague Fajardo Einstein. She has also been a finalist for the John Steinbeck Award for Fiction and a recipient of the Literary Journal's New Criticism Award. She has works published or forthcoming in Read Magazine, the Florida Review, Tahoma Literary Review, Gordon Square Review, and other venues. She is currently working on a collection of short stories, threading boundaries, brokenness, and intimacy.
Hi, so I'm going to read an excerpt of my short story, and I'll just start from the beginning. My girlfriend had a boyish hairstyle, the kind that you'd see on K-pop stars, a bowl cut, a rounded shape with bangs that brush her eyes. Sometimes, when her bangs grew longer, her eyes would hide behind her hair. She loved her eyes to be covered. When I rubbed her hair trying to pick at her forehead at night, she pushed me away. Her mother, who had emigrated to Montreal 7 years ago, asked her to grow her hair because that wasn't the correct hairstyle for a woman. We Chinese girls were forever haunted by our Chinese mothers. No matter where we were heading in life, their shadows would always follow us, weeping like a lost child. At night, I touch her ears. In the darkness, I gently rub her black earrings and imagine how the cold silver needle penetrated her ear. It disappeared from one side, went through her pink, warm flesh, then appeared again at the other side. I imagine her blood oozing. She never took her black earrings off, just like she never took her sport bra off, even when she slept. At first, we were roommates. In the basement on Rue Largue, we used a screen to separate the only bedroom. We put a single bed on each side of the bedroom. When the room was quiet, I could hear her breathing on the other side. Back then, we could only afford to share a basement. It was poverty that brought us together, I often thought. In the soil of poverty, our love grew. Why did you emigrate here? I asked her when we first became roommates. My mother wanted a richer life, she said, and she believed that in Canada she could achieve that life. One evening, before she had become my girlfriend, I asked her if she wanted a massage. We were lying on the couch in our basement. Before she could respond, I put my fingers on her shoulders. I told her that when I was in college in Shanghai, my roommates would take turns massaging each other. I prayed when I was touching her spine that she could turn back. It's my turn to give you a massage now, she said. You don't have to, I said. Her fingers were cold. My neck was sticky. I was so afraid that my sweat would disgust her that I asked her to stop. You may already see that my girlfriend was more like a boyfriend to me, but please excuse me that I'll continue to call her my girlfriend. That's how things were in China. If you were born as a she, then you were a she forever. I guess that too caused her confusion, but I never asked her. It was something too awkward to be discussed. How could you ask your girlfriend if she considered herself to be a man or a woman? How could you just ask? At home, I call her baby. I called her dear. I called her 老公, meaning husband in Chinese. When I introduced her to my friends, I called her my girlfriend. In the shopping mall, she used the women's restrooms. In the women's fitting room, she tried on men's clothes. In the summer, she spent the whole night skateboarding on the streets. Try it, she said. No, I said. Just step on it. She gave me her hand. I grabbed hers tightly. When I stepped on her skateboard, she began to run. I bent down on her skateboard. Off we went, speeding down the empty streets of Montreal as the summer wind blew horizontally. She used to work for Imperial Oil in Alberta, she told me. It was cold there, so cold that she dated her ex-boss. Their relationship started when their truck was stuck in the snow. It ended because they were both busy. My ex-boss was a white woman older than me, she said. I like women older than me. I was 4 years older than her. Have you dated any women before? She asked. No, I told her. I'm not a lesbian. Loving her did not mean that I was a lesbian, I often told her. Loving her only meant loving her. My Shanghainese mother's wisdom of life is that a man should be stronger in all ways than his woman. He must be older, taller, and richer. He must be mature, while his woman should remain a girl who never grows old. My girlfriend was younger, poorer, and shorter than me. She was once mistaken by the police in Montreal as a boy under the age of 12. When she went to Roots, she could only buy boys' shorts, and when we hugged, I often worried that I hurt her feelings by being taller. In China, we described a lovely girl as someone who is as dependent as a little bird, and a responsible man as the pillar of the family. In Montreal, after I found a job as an accountant in Chinatown, I started to give her money. At Monk Station, I passed the entry gates, then gave my monthly pass to her. She waited for 10 minutes to use my pass again. We went downstairs, passing by the sculpture Big and Bella. It was large, looming like a giant metal spider. Big and Bella. I tried to say it in the right way. Big and Bella. In Montreal, we always failed to speak and understand French. It made life even harder. But still, we chose here as our destination because Quebec was the easiest place to immigrate to in the whole country. On the train, we listened to and repeated how the stations were pronounced. De l'Église, Charlevoix, Lionel-le-Coux. The train stopped suddenly. We were asked to get off because someone had jumped onto the track. We bet who'd be the first one to come out to our Chinese mothers. She said that she would. But whenever she mentioned queers, her mother would frown. Canada is a good country in every way, her mother always said, except for the boys who don't look like boys, the girls who don't look like girls, and the smell of weed. She sometimes mocked me for being timid, but she was the one who never confessed. She said that her mother loved her so much that she didn't want to break her mother's heart. Her mother had always wanted a boy. Before giving birth to her at the age of 39, her mother had suffered from a miscarriage 3 times. After she was born, an intrauterine device was put into her mother's womb to prevent pregnancy. Now her mother said that she better change her hairstyle, wear a dress, and get married to a man as soon as she could. The only thing that she liked about Montreal, she told me, was that Leonard Cohen once lived there. She took me to Bac de Portugal, from which we could see the triplex where he used to live. On Valliere Street, under the streets of the triplex, there were tourists taking pictures, singing Hallelujah. She took me to Saint-Victor for his favorite bagels. In Mile End, we saw crowds cheering for France's national football team. On a hot afternoon in July, we went to Shah Hashemayim Cemetery. It took us 2 hours wandering in the woods of Mount Hoyala to find the cemetery, and then another 2 to find his grave. I finally cried because I was too exhausted. I turned out to be the stronger, braver one. During a phone call, I told my mother about her. Oh, my mother said, it's okay. I'm sorry, I said. It's okay, my Shanghainese mother said. Your mother is very open-minded. It's okay if you like a girl. Is your girlfriend also from Shanghai? Remember, you must marry a Shanghainese who can support the family while you are raising your kids. Sometimes we'd fight over trivial things, like she played video game at 3 a.m. and wake me up when I needed to go to work the next morning, or when I returned home, I find her sleeping on the couch, the dishes from the previous day still piled up in the sink and smelling like rotten eggs. On our first anniversary, I bought her a keyboard that glowed in the dark. On our second anniversary, I yanked out her computer's cable at midnight because the sound of her typing on the glow-in-the-dark keyboard was disturbing. Back in Shanghai, I lived in a 3-story house with my family. 13 families lived in the house, my family occupying only one of the bedrooms. At dusk, we'd wait for an hour to use the shared kitchen. When we went to bed, we could hear every conversation happening in the 13 families. My mother told me that a woman's best dowry was her virginity. She told me that my virginity was the only thing that could change our fate and that I could get anything I want with it. She called women who slept with men before marriage second-hand houses, and those who had an abortion haunted house where there were dead people. I was confused about my virginity. I wasn't sure if I was still a new house after sleeping with my girlfriend. Yeah, I'm done with my reading. Thank you,
so much.
guys.
That was wonderful. Let me just move around the spotlights here for a second. I'll do this one. I'll ask Meredith to unmute and add a spotlight. All right, great. Thank you so much, Yura. That was amazing. And I'm so happy to be able to introduce Meredith Tallison, who's the author of the memoir Fairest, which was a finalist for the Lambda Literary Award and was also named by O Magazine as one of the best LGBTQ books of 2020. She has written for the New York Times, The Guardian, The Atlantic, LitHub, Guernica, Catapult, and many other publications. Meredith has also contributed to several books, most recently the fiction collection Anonymous Sex. Meredith lives in Berryville, New York, and teaches in the MFA programs at Antioch College and Sarah Lawrence College. Meredith, thanks so much.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. That was an amazing, amazing reading. Super, super inspiring. And I'm going to be reading my contribution. First of all, I have low vision, so I'm reading on my iPad, but also my contribution happens to be a relatively short story that fits into 10 minutes. So I'm going to read my whole story. It's called The Kindness Thief. Medicine is 1% science, 99% bedside manner. Dr. Emma Larson Donovan begins at the podium after she is introduced. Knowing sounds of agreement greet her from the black void of the auditorium, making it clear that most everyone there has seen the viral TED Talk that launched her into celebrity. Manila is the second to last stop on Emma's international speaking tour, which concludes in Jakarta tomorrow. Then she'll go to Bali, where her friends have retired, and where her husband, Justin Donovan, will join her after he's done with his shoot in the Seychelles as the star of Incredible Fury 4. Emma's audience has tripled overnight when she and Justin married a year and a half ago, 4 months after they met at a gala for Doctors Without Borders. I have learned that the name of my hometown in Indonesia, Ambon, means drizzle in your language, she says. Now I understand why it always rained when I was a kid. Emma congratulates herself when she hears chuckles. This is one of her cleverer lines, deployed in the slot for specifying the city she's in. She's memorized the rest of the speech she's given dozens of times as the world's foremost expert on bedside manner. Emma makes sure to shift her head every few sentences to mimic the manner of a spontaneous speaker while she explains terms like differential care and data-driven compassion. When her gaze turns to the side, Emma notices Dr. Panalo's face at the outer rim of the spotlight. Emma can't remember the woman's first name, but she's on stage in a chair, ready to moderate the Q&A afterward. Dr. Panalo hosts a local talk show, not Emma's first choice, but her agency insisted the woman would draw the right crowd. When they met in the green room before her talk, Emma guessed that Dr. Panalo must also be in her late 30s. They even look a bit alike, the same medium brown skin and wide-set eyes, though Emma's jaw is more angular. Profiles of her often noted that she commands attention, which is a polite way of saying that her features and manner are masculine enough that she gets taken seriously, but feminine enough to still be attractive. I read that your father is an anthropologist, Dr. Panalo said. He met my mother doing field research in Indonesia on the nature of conflict. I got interested in kindness because it's the opposite. Profiles of Emma dwell on this too, and how she lived all over the world as a child. Emma is used to people finding the story charming. She didn't expect Dr. Panalo's mouth to turn downward, and for the doctor to still be wearing the same expression now at the edge of the spotlight during Emma's speech, an expression that suddenly conjures a young girl's face, the same downturned mouth from so long ago. Dr. Panalo has grown up. but Emma must have known her as a 10-year-old girl named Leah, standing outside the hut of an elder named Tabayo in a Philippine village called Pantubig. Leah carries a basin of water, and the old man motions for her to enter the dark room where he is squatting on the ground with Emma, except that her name is not Emma, but Manu, short for Emmanuel, and she is a boy. The village healer has determined that Manu will be his successor, even though Manu is only the old man's grandnephew and not his direct descendant, because none of his own grandsons are caring enough to be suitable. Leah is the one grandchild who wants to succeed him, but Tabayo refuses to choose a girl. Manu has long admired the healer's work, the herbs he gathers and mixes into concoctions to cure ailments, the way his hands fix the villagers' aching joints so they can continue to harvest their fields. While the sundry store sells tablets and there's a doctor in town, the villagers still go to Tabayo because he accepts payment in rice and vegetables, and he's the only healer they've ever known. The medicine is not the most important part, Tabayo says, as he lights a candle that brightens his eyes. It is the telling of fortunes. The healer drips wax into the basin, then peers into it with Manu. Ask them what shape they see, and no matter what they say, you must find the thread of hope that will connect you to your patient. This will guide you to the corner of their heart that will heal them. Manu stares at the white blob of wax in the basin and sees a woman's profile with hair past her shoulders and a delicate nose. He looks up and sees that while Leah has left the room as the healer instructed, his cousin lingers just outside the door, even when the sun is hot. Manu feels the weight of that girl giving up her place in the world so he can take his. Emma can't help but peer at Leah's face now, which has grown longer and lost its chubbiness. Emma wonders how she could have ever thought Dr. Panalo a stranger, just because she must have married and changed their common last name, just as Emma has changed hers. The healing doesn't start when you treat the patient, but when you greet the patient, Emma says, though she feels no satisfaction when the audience laughs. She hears the healer's forgotten voice in her advice, dressed up like a minstrel for the Americans, then brought back to its place of origin at an exorbitant price. Emma knew it once, that those words were borrowed, knew it for a few minutes when she wrote them in a book, before she repeated them in a talk. But there was no sense in attributing them to a person who neither read nor spoke English, only to invite questions about her past. To give the healer credit, Emma would need to explain that her father died in his sleep, that the anthropologist is really her stepfather, who fell in love with her mother in a Philippine village before he came to Indonesia. People would wonder why she hid her true childhood in the first place. Emma runs through more terms she's made up, like halo of empathy and tactile placebo, recognizing how these are also versions of the healer's words, translated into English than medicalese. They're not just the old man's words, but his ideas, his thought processes, his entire worldview. Emma's whole line of research, the books, the money, the acclaim, were all stolen from this man and the generations of village wisdom he embodied. So if there's anything you can take from this talk, Emma concludes, it is that maybe a kind hand on your patient's shoulder isn't such a bad thing. She hears how patronizing this is coming from an American doctor who has every treatment at her disposal, who makes dozens of times what doctors make in this country for peddling ideas she stole from one of their own. The audience claps. Emma glances at Leah again and comprehends that this woman can destroy her life. She could apologize now, speak from the heart, tell part of the truth. Maybe Leah will take pity and spare her the shame of revealing a past no one knows about, except for those far-flung villagers she never expected to meet again. Except now, one of those villagers is about to interview her in public, the very girl whose rightful place she once usurped. Emma could pretend to faint, but would only make the headline worse. Movie star's wife collapses before shocking revelation. She was born a man. She needs to reach Justin. She needs to tell him before his team sees the news. It's her only chance before they can go into damage control. He's on his shoot. He won't have his phone. She's deluding herself. She'll have no chance once Leah opens her mouth. Emma starts towards the seat at the middle of the stage as the lights go up. She looks past Leah toward the wings. Maybe there's a stagehand who can turn off their lapel mics. There's no one there. Maybe she can take the mic off herself and ask her cousin to do the same. Maybe she can ask Leah to turn away from the audience just for a moment so Emma can plead with her. Maybe Leah will be merciful. Her hand reaches for her collar to unclip the mic. But before she does, Emma sights Dr. Panalo in full light for the first time since the talk began. The woman hardly looks like Leah at all. Her downturned expression is just the doctor's earnest face. Wasn't that fascinating, everybody? Dr. Panalo asks as she breaks into a wide smile, and the audience claps again. Dr. Larson Donovan, you honor our common ancestors with your presence among us. Please, she says before she sits down and crosses her legs, call me Emma. Dr. Panalo begins to ask questions Emma has answered before about how she got started, why this research is so important to her, and even what it's like to be married to a movie star. She wants to say something other than what she's rehearsed, about a village that rests on the same land where they now sit, a healer named Tabayo, a girl named Leah, and a boy named Manu, but she does not know how. Instead, she wonders if this will always be her fortune, to live a blessed life that isn't hers. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
That was wonderful, Meredith. I was on the edge of my seat, even though I've read the story. So that was awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Our next reader is Adebe Durango Adem, and she is one of the 2 winners of Boston Review's 2021 annual poetry contest, selected by Sonia Sanchez. She's a former attendee of the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics, Naropa University, where she mentored with poets Anne Waldman and Amiri Baraka. She is the author of 3 full-length poetry books to date: Ex Nihilo, Terra Unmooring, and The Unmooring. I'm sorry, Terra Incognita, and then The Unmooring. Her forthcoming collection is Vox Humana, which will be published by Book Hug Press in the fall.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here in such esteemed company. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And a special thank you as well to Adam and to Ivelisse for making this event happen and making this issue happen as well. And for recognizing, I think, that there's much in need of repair these days. And I think that words and literature can kind of work towards being a part of reparations in some way as well. So that's why we keep, writing, and we keep reading, we keep performing to negotiate through these struggles. So I was thinking to read 3 poems. I'll read Genus Provectus, which is the winning piece, as well as 2 other poems. And all these poems feature in my upcoming collection, Vox Humana, which will be available this fall with Book Hug. And apologies for the light. It looks like I have to repair my my lights in my place right now. So I'm trying my best to. It's not mood lighting. I'm just trying to navigate as best I can. So Genus Provectus, genus is Latin for a few things, but it includes birth, origin, race, sort, or kind. And Provectus is the past participle of Latin provere, which means basically to carry onward or to carry forward. All right. These lines be a long time coming. They come from primordial scream, forecasts, varieties of false teeth, and a taste for self. The dark, fascinating rhythms insurgent throughout my genealogy, a lingering oracular line that begins in a village with a great uncle who dealt in kinetic currency, saw all through third eye, and spoke with an older Aksumite knowledge. And my father, before he was my father, belonged to a people who had names for all the stars above Hambaricho Mountain, knew their place in the lineage, and were known to frequent frequencies beyond the small arc of Western suffering, moved as unburied marvels, and kept moving on missionaries, stepping out of line, and finally carved, as though by magic, churches from underground rock. Threw Rome a bone, called it a day. And when the Italians came again in 1896, they had slim picks and lost, trying to decipher the spirit on Ethiop's lips. So should you wonder what country I am really from, you'll have to play it way back to the age of mystics and wizards by trade. To come from my country is to arrive at the beginning of multitudes. These pages, once upon a tree, but the rhizomes beneath, a scattered network of howls. Thank you. And I'll get right into it. I'm going to move on to the second piece, Consone Navitas, also featured in this issue. Consone means a sounding together, or a harmony or a harmoniousness. And Navitas refers to zeal or energy. I kind of like to think of it as an energy that's on time. Vox consone navitas. Hear me out, dear Bread of Life pantry on Carnegie Ave. Dear botanical gardens, thing of curatorial beauty. I can try and tune out the loud swirling of trees, green as money. Try and drown out the sound of the vacant row homes, empty abodes of dead millionaires with songs on the radio. But when that song about the rains in Africa comes on, I begin dreaming of Aksum, Nubia, how we reigned. In reality, I am facing Lake Erie and the marina, where two Black men in thick camouflage coats fish and talk about God. In reality, they are likely conversing in murmurs or grunts, in veteran speak. By this time, it is raining ever so slightly on Euclid, and I pass two more elderly men with soft branches for a body. And in an abstract maternal gesture, as if to say, sorry for the war that conscript you, so as to script your life into a theater of pain. Or is it the pain we share I see, in which I am your understudy, a production in which you are known for your famous last lines? Or do we need to switch up that storyline, including the one that philanthropy wasn't the result of giving Black people hell? And still, we gave you our children who became your mistresses, even gave you our musics, let you mimic our medicinal blues. What say you, Amiri? I can hear you, Sonia, hear your hues. Is it because we made you that you don't want us? Because you need us, like sight needs darkness to make sense of light? Thank you so much. I think I have enough time, right, for one short one. So, I just wanted to say as well that I feel that everything that I've been writing recently is sort of part of a continuum, and part of that continuum. And I have to say that I would not be here or have been able to see where I was going as a writer without writers such as Poet at Large, Ad Infinitum, our dear Sister Supreme, Sonia Sanchez. I'm still relishing in that, and I still can't believe, she read our work. But her words definitely confirmed to me that it is possible to be both angry and full of love. My last piece, and thank you again to everyone for making this event and this issue possible, is called Cordia Cantus, and that's after Latin for heart, cordia, and cantus, which can mean a few things. It's an umbrella term, but it can mean incantation or poem or song or chant. Thanks again, everyone. Vox Cordia Cantus. Dear rhythmic throbs of this corda lingua, wretched heart, what use do laws and principles have in matters of a heart that thrives and speaks in riveting chords? Over time, we learn to tame woe's wilderness, withstand the wretched crossfire, if for nothing, but to love again. Is it love or woe that makes me thrive on rhythms? Without law, is it useful to withstand being left wretched and hanging on an untamed last chord? How to tame the heart's wilderness when it is a wretch on principle? Can I love this wilderness? Can I thrive on wildfire? Must I adhere to woe? What is left, if nothing but to withstand to the end? Even if we end up loving useless laws, or are all laws a wilderness? What use are wretched principles or a wilderness on fire? What's the use of taming a wildfire heart? How to use chords instead of fire, even in the wretched key of woe? Why love with wildfire again, as if to withstand? Can I love without withstanding? Can I love without adhering to nothing? Should I love notwithstanding, even when the fire turns useless? Should I adhere on principle to the lingua of my heart? In my heart, a wilderness of chords on fire. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was so beautiful. Makes me want to go read poetry now. So thank you for honoring us with that reading. Our next reader is Simone Person, a Black queer femme, two-time Pink Door Writing Retreat Fellow and editor for Just Femme and Dandy. Their debut prose chapbook, Dislocate, won Honeysuckle Press's 2017 chapbook contest, and their debut poetry chapbook, Smoke Girl, won Diadi Editions 2018 chapbook contest. They were longlisted for the 2021 Granum Prize, longlisted for Frontier Poetry's 2021 Frontier Open, and named a runner-up for Underblong's 2021 Blong Prize. They grew up in Toledo, Ohio, and small Michigan towns.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm just so excited to be here with everyone. I'm also deeply nervous because this is only like the fifth reading I've ever done, so I hope it's not bad. But I mean, what an act to follow. I'm just, really great. I'm so excited to be here, like I said, and it's very surreal to be a winner. When I was submitted, I was like, this is never gonna happen. I'm never gonna think about this again. So it's really cool to be here. So I'm gonna read a couple of poems for you tonight. The first one is titled "I'm Not Sorry," and it opens up with an epigraph from a Jose Olivares tweet, which is "I'm thankful again and again for my rage," which is basically like, that's my brand. So let's get into it. All right, I'm not sorry. I wasn't raised right, never exalted my tongue to syrup. Call me cracked mirror and black cat. Every worst thing you heard is true. I cut a man down to his knees and I'm itching to do it again. I only have bad sides and my hands are the brightest hauntings. I'm done trying for beauty. You can find me at any crossroads buried upside down. I'm no longer smiling the full row of roses. My love is the slickest knife, the glancing blow. I've learned to slip slide into the heat of my own blood mouth. If you reach inside me, you'll just touch teeth. I'm a dark gnashing, cursed inertia. I've worked this body to dust, strange fruit entombed in a fly-blown garden. So there's that one. Super uplifting, great, happy. And this next one is, it's so weird to say this, but one of the winning poems, the co-winning poem, so it's just, again, it's just really surreal. So it's called In Praise of the Sharp Blade. It's an ekphrasis of an Artemisia Gentileschi painting. You can look it up. It's a little gory, just to let you know, but it's called Judas Slaying Holofernes. And it's a popular biblical scene that Gentileschi painted of Judas decapitating the head of the general of an invading army. She started to paint it shortly after she was sexually assaulted by two men who worked with her father in her own home. So some people believe that she used one of the faces of her rapist as a model for Holofernes, and then her own face as the model for Judith, and even painting her with a bracelet of the Greek god Artemis, who is the goddess of chastity and the hunt. So I mean, it's a really stunning painting and is something that meant a lot to me as I processed my own sexual assault. So I figured, why not write a poem about it? And here we are. In Praise of the Sharp Blade, after Artemisia Gentileschi's Judith Slaying Holofernes. Or rather, in praise of the blade. Its strength doesn't matter, we're hunger-headed, all the same. Our fingers wrestle his cheek's crisp flesh to the bed, a cheek previously mother kissed or held by some moon-eyed love, and we pulp it into our good foundation. The hem of his neck stains to flagrant soak, and we dig deeper. His eyes wildly bruising the room, hoping for someone to gut us away from our will, but we'll tell you this. We too were once pitchforked under God's swept wanting, and no one came for us, as none will for him now. We've no pleasure in this frenzy. He crueled us into rampage. Oh, Blade, thank you for your famine of questioning, steady in our practiced violence. How just it is to unmake a man. So again, happy, uplifting. So, this next poem is a series in my manuscript that I'm technically still working on, I guess. That explores whiteness through white celebrity. So this one is called Chet Hanks Explains How, if you think about it, we're all Africans. So, all right. And he smiles a poplar teeth chorus with a sawed-off stare adorns us queen, as in black, as in his. He names it admiration, a burnt cork offering, says if we're smart, we'll take it before he loses interest. His reminder of what he's culled, that everything we call ours is ripening into taken, a howling obad signaling the beginning of the hunt. Chet blesses himself righteous architect, ready to ravage everything not of his body. He explains this slaughter is his birthright. White boy as puddle deep, as gaunt manifestation of God, he says he's got a legacy to carry, vulgars in his blood. And he's always liked that word, blood. How easy it is to find, so abundant, a dulled gospel just waiting beneath skin. And these last two are pretty short. And so this one is another series in my manuscript, which is just a series of prayers to various Catholic saints. So this one is prayers to Saint Catherine, which is Saint Catherine of Siena. Also big content trigger warning for sexual assault and eating disorders. And, should have started that. So yeah, prayers to Saint Catherine. He says none of what I remember is true, that I'm just greedy for revenge. Heavenly Catherine, I would give everything to be my own practiced cage, feel safe back to who I was, abandon my grief split howling. I admit, I rejoice in hunger's choir, practice the ugly math of body, devout notations on violence badly built into skin. I know I've reared a terrible throne, but it's the last thing left that's only mine, and I can't let go of any more of my dead. Have I overindulged on penance? Make this mouth grave, humble dirge, blessed ruin. I just want to do it right. At night, I burn my hair down to scalp, but it returns every dawn dark. I'm bloated with memory, knowledge bitter that men's proud rage is my lonely heirloom. I could fill my whole house with the wrong ways I've been loved. Always target practice, the thing he leveled. I have no choice but to empty. So this last poem is a pantoum of anti-apotheosis. Apotheosis is like the creation of a god, not like the birth of one, but like the making of one. So pantoum of anti-apotheosis. My father wanted to name me Adonis, beautiful panacea who could live among gods. I was born neither boy nor beautiful, my first well-loved grief. Adonis, beautiful panacea, who could live among gods spilled unto the shock of this earth, my first well-loved grief as woman-faced monster. Spilled unto the shock of this earth, I was born neither boy nor beautiful, woman-faced monster, my father wanted to name me. Thank you.
Oh my God, Simone, that was phenomenal. Thank you so much. Oh man, I'm so stunned by those. Thank you. Let me just move these around here. And Brian down here, and I think you should be able to unmute now. All right. So then, our last reader of the night is Brian Tier, who was a 2020 Guggenheim Fellow and is the author of 6 critically acclaimed books, most recently Companion Grasses, The Empty Form Goes All the Way to Heaven, and Doomstead Days, which won the 4 Quartets Prize. His honors include the Brittingham Prize and Lambda Literary and Publishing Triangle Awards, as well as fellowships from the NEA, the Pew Foundation, and the McDowell Colony. After over a decade of teaching and writing in the San Francisco Bay Area and 8 years in Philadelphia, he's now associate professor at the University of Virginia and lives in Charlottesville, where he makes books by hand for his micropress, Albion Books. Brian, it's such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a real honor, and I feel not quite worthy to close out this reading after such amazing work. I just wanted to mark how I actually have been publishing with Boston Review for 20 years. I realized my first poem came out in Boston Review in 2002. And I didn't quite realize that. And I was really kind of moved to be part of BR for so long and through so many changes in the institution and its formats. Yeah, so I thank you, Adam, for continuing an editorial relationship with the journal. I really, and an institution I really have a lot of respect for. So I am going to read the beginning of this essay in from Repair. The title of the essay is Neither Chaos Nor Quest Toward a Non-Narrative Medicine. And it began as a talk I was invited to give about chronic illness to medical residents at the UVA Medical Center. And it turns into kind of like an anti-capitalist, medical institution kind of screed. But the beginning of it, it's in 3 parts, and the beginning of it is a more memoir-based part, and I will read that. The clinic was open once a week and saw patients in a borrowed space near enough that I could walk to it, even on a bad day. Walking slow in my cognitive fog, only once did I have to pause, leaning over the curb to vomit discreetly between parked cars. Nausea and migraine washed over most of that year. Since May, I'd been enrolled in a taxpayer-funded city-run public health program for uninsured low-income residents who'd made too much money or too much income to qualify for Medicare. Late that spring, I'd taken the bus to my intake appointment with the health department. I'd provided the required proof, identity, residence, income, and I'd been enrolled. I'd immediately begun paying the modest income-adjusted quarterly fees, despite the fact that the soonest I could get an appointment was August. Over the summer, I'd continued to work as an adjunct professor and freelance book reviewer, including Boston Review. During those months, my partner and I accumulated the hope that in August, I'd at last get the help I needed. Despite temporary relief provided by weekly acupuncture treatments at a sliding scale practice, my symptoms remained the same: occipital migraines, cognitive fog, facial flushing, nausea and bloating, and alternating diarrhea and constipation. I was always tired, always in need of more sleep. I could never get rested. My face and scalp were red and hot. Even brief touch left white prints on my swollen skin. The heat was painful and distracting. When I worked from home, I wore a big ice pack on top of my head while I graded papers or wrote. Curving around my face as it thawed, it made me look like a Puritan housefrau, and my partner joked it was drag, the famous American poet, Man Bradstreet. I took it off only long enough to freeze it again. My hands, however hot my face, were always cold. The clinic carved its borrowed hours out of offices in a brutalist building of pebble-textured concrete and big glass windows, offices with dark tile floors that got colder as the season wore on. Its operations were obviously makeshift, from quickly taped up, thinly laminated intake signs to shoddy Xeroxes I was given on a chipped clipboard. Given my own precarity, I recognized a shoestring budget when I saw one, and I had sympathy for working under those conditions. When I finally saw the doctor, a pleasant enough middle-aged butch whose partner I would find out was looking for adjunct classes, and did I have any leads for her? We had 20 minutes. Her back to me, she looked up my symptoms in a digital database. At the time, the facial flushing caused me the most immediate distress, so that's what she focused on. After cross-referencing her database, my family history of autoimmune disorders, my own history of celiac disease and osteoarthritis, and my litany of unexplained complaints, she found plausible causes in 3 diseases and said that we do a series of tests. First for Sjogren's syndrome, then for lupus, and finally for carcinoid syndrome. Then came the worst part. The doctor would have to order the equipment to perform the lab work and was only allowed to order 1 test at a time. I'd have to come back the following week when the kind and handsome phlebotomist, Jessie, would have 1 butterfly needle and 1 tube waiting for a good vein. I'd get the result the following month, at which point, if it was negative, she'd have to order another test, and we'd start all over again. It was at best a farce, at worst a bureaucratic allegory out of Kafka. While the doctor acknowledged the absurd, cruel inefficiency of the constrained clinic, she nonetheless remained its diligent and perfunctory functionary. Even when offering me a handshake at the end of the appointment, she remained behind her outdated desktop, a boxy model, the same stained beige color as the public architecture from which the clinic cribbed its limited care. And so we waited, my partner and I, we waited to hear the story about my body we thought Western medicine was going to tell us, the story of restitution that we'd been promised, only it couldn't tell, the familiar one that goes illness, diagnosis, treatment, health. We also waited for my story about bad capitalism to end, exploitative labor, low income, chronic illness, and a healthcare system that at that time denied insurance to people with pre-existing medical conditions, and for another, better story about offered by taxpayer-funded public healthcare to begin. As in a fairy tale, I was tested 3 times. The first time we waited, I went back to the clinic, Jesse drew my blood, we waited, I went back to the clinic, and I did not have Sjogren's. The second time we waited, I went back to the clinic. Jesse drew my blood, we waited. I went back to the clinic and I did not have lupus. The final time we waited, I went back to the clinic. Jesse drew my blood, we waited. I went back to the clinic and I did not have carcinoid syndrome. In this way, months passed. It was December when the doctor told me I did not have carcinoid syndrome, an illness associated with advanced liver cancer. And because it was our final appointment together, she offered me a diagnosis, anxiety and depression, accompanied by 2 prescriptions, an anti-anxiety drug and an SSRI. Though it would be another 3 years until I received adequate medical care, and though this would not be the worst I would receive, it was the first time I was betrayed by my own GP. She didn't say the phrase, "It's all in your head," but she might as well have. Given the historical mistreatment of women and queers who've entrusted body and mind to the clinic, I was especially galled to find a butch colluding with patriarchy's classic strategy of gaslighting. So much for queer solidarity. I was galled and then I was angry. The final appointment also happened to be the only one my partner was able to attend. We'd waited through all 3 tests, and there he finally was, listening to the doctor imply it's all in your head. I was angry because I could tell he wanted to believe her. I was angry because, of course, I was anxious. Since May, I'd been waiting to receive care. Since August, I'd been tested for a series of diseases that escalated in seriousness from debilitating to terminal. Since my blood was last drawn, we'd been living with the fear I had advanced cancer. All along, I was always already ill, dealing with the dailiness of that while teaching 4 adjunct classes at 3 different schools. She shook my hand and handed me the scripts she wished me to follow. My partner walked out of the clinic and I followed into a disagreement that began the end of our marriage. We didn't even celebrate the news that I didn't have cancer. "I can't believe I'm with another crazy person," he said, as though to himself. "Why am I always with a crazy person?" This only made me angrier. He implied that if I did have a psychiatric disability, I wasn't worthy of his love, that being with me would be a mistake. "I'm not crazy, I'm sick," is all the language I had just then. We'd been together for 6 years. I was too stunned to argue. This was my love, after all. The man who just that summer had helped me assess the limitations that had accrued during my illness. We sat at the kitchen table while I worried over an editor's invitation to submit work to an anthology of disability poetry. "I don't really count as disabled, right?" I asked him. He was silent so long that I had my answer, even before he looked me in the eyes and listed the abilities I had lost in the years we had been together, physical and cognitive limitations that I had learned to live with. What choice did I have? But through his eyes, I saw that my illness looked like disability, and I saw too how it had impacted him. Though we never settled on how best to talk about our divergent experiences of my illness, the conversation brought a new level of intimacy and trust between us. How then could I make him see me again as a person whose word he could trust? The doctor's scripts were in my pocket. I knew I would never use them. In the coming year, I'd begin to suspect my love would never again take my side. And by the end of our marriage, I'd realize that indeed he never did. I'm not blaming chronically underfunded public health care for the marital problems created by exploitative labor, low income chronic illness, and lack of health insurance. But neither am I absolving it of its part in exacerbating and complicating the pre-existing conditions of capitalism. I keep imagining what it would have meant to have encountered a doctor who said, "I'm at the end of the care I can give you. And though I couldn't diagnose your illness, I believe you are ill and you need more comprehensive testing than public health can provide." What would it have meant for my partner to hear those words at that crucial moment? I won't pretend that turning this experience into narrative is healing. The damage done to my life can't be undone. And I will leave it there. Thank you so much.
Oh my God, thank you so much, Brian. That essay guts me every time. It's so beautiful. Let me just, I'm gonna unmute all the presenters and bring them back to the front here. Okay, I think one, okay. All right, I think that's everybody here. It's such a pleasure. This was an incredible night. I'm just really happy that we all got to hang out together. Let's do this again sometime soon. It was great, and hearing you read the work was just phenomenal. So thank you to everybody. Thanks to the people who tuned in tonight and donated to help offset some of the cost of doing events like this. It really makes a huge difference that that our readers support us. So don't forget, there's a discount code that I put in the chat. So if you want extra copies, it's a beautiful book. There's a lot of amazing work in it. You heard some of it tonight. A lot of what you heard were sort of short snippets, and so make sure to get a book so that you can read the whole thing. And there's also just a lot of other incredible work in it that we weren't able to hear tonight. So you don't want to miss out on that. So thanks to everybody. Take care of yourselves. It's tough times. And hopefully we'll all talk again soon. So good night, everybody. Take care. Thank you so much.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Ew.
Everyone.